Like, although I have to go down and meet the lawyer, right? I mean, you banged the door really hardly when I was looking at something, writing something down. I mean, what I was writing down is the kind of thing I was writing down when, like, that guy, Mr. Cooper, we call himself Mr. Cooper. He said, like, he gets it, right? I mean, part of this thing about you see, part it's part of the reason people think that people like me, like that we should be institutionalized, or whatever. Like, that you see, there's the reason that Young, see, you know, Carl Jung is important to people like me in a different way too, because of his influence on Alcoholics Anonymous. But see, Jung was thrown out of the psychoanalysis movement, like by Freud, because Freud felt he couldn't trust him because he wasn't a Jew. Like, see, he wanted to make it into like an authoritarian movement, or like a way of control. And the thing is, like, but he thought he couldn't trust Jung because Jung wasn't a Jew, but also because Young believed in a collective consciousness, and like certainly like the National Socialists and like things, even though like Young was not, he was not a member of the Nazi Party or the Fascist Party or any political thing like that, but I'm saying his idea of like of a collective consciousness, like, right, I mean, the National Socialists, like, they believed in, and the Fascist International, like, the intellectuals believed for example, part of healthcare, like, the whole point is that the nation is like an organic spiritual entity, that it's like and that's connected and won't be, certainly psychologically, like, was a collective consciousness. Okay, but like that also involves like non-linear relationships between things that are connected by meaning, not causality. But you see, Freud, like, part of liberalism, the way Francis Parker defined liberalism, is that what he said is that it's a form of rationalism with the Nietzschean will to power, like that is the linear rationality, like to say that because he's just a kind of kindergarten of, it's like a childlike or a mentality that has a Nietzschean will to power. It's his words. He said, like, because you see that just because something you say is consistent with observable reality doesn't mean it has to be differential. It has to be superior to all other explanations just because it matches, just because it's one thing that could be going on, like, that doesn't mean it's real. But also, just because something's empirically rational, that is like a scientific study, like, would demonstrate that in theory that would work, kind of like like the neoliberal economics. Like, just because mathematically or scientifically, like, something would work, like, you can't just do whatever you want to human beings, or like, just because it's empirically rational. But also, if you can't deny objective reality, if someone says like that you're harming people, or someone says something's wrong or something, to say, like, what is your empirical evidence? That is, that if nothing is valid, like, if you say, well, unless you can demonstrate it empirically, then that's sort of like that's, well, like, how can you demonstrate empirically, like, the obvious? Like, can I demonstrate empirically that you shouldn't beat your wife? Like, well, no, I mean, but it's wrong. Well, what is your empirical evidence that I can't beat my wife? Someone would say, well, I don't know a way to do a study that would indicate it. It's simply that I live in objective reality. So, it's a form of liberalism, he said, is a form of rationality with the Nietzschean will to power, right? And then LaRouche, like, sort of, his thing is it would be a part of that, that it's someone attempting to systematically deny the existence and objective reality, or like they're into this thing, like their philosophy, like the liberalism people, like, they say there is no truth and everything. But here's the thing, they're right. I mean, what you said, I was noticing a non-linear connection. I wrote it down in a book, but I'm saying, like, if I showed that to a liberal who's that's a type of rationalism, like, they would say that the person's mentally ill, like, they're making connections between things where there are none. But they don't understand, like, part of Christianity, like, by the way, is it's subjectively relevant in my experience. Those things are connected by meaning, but the fact that they're happening synchronistically would indicate, like, there's some kind of, like, like, sort of loving thing at work, that's such a synchronicity, like, took place. But see, like, if I showed that to someone in a liberal university, like, they would say, like, I have mental illness. that's something because like did they don't it was that but I don't know like but how could those thoughts be helpful? Like I don't know, like you have to they it was we don't know how sick the people in the universities are. We don't know how sick the people like who came up with this liberalism shit are. But it was like I don't really know what I can add other than you banged when I was writing down what I noticed on the TV about something that happens to, I mean, but I'm saying I made a non-linear connection. I would like to know more about why they want to, the one way they want to solve this sort of think tanks that have come up with a way to end this like nightmare created by what's going on in the economics departments and the economics graduate schools, who then go into economic policy making positions, is that they believe that they have to start at the high school math level and begin to teach non-Euclidean geometry, which is some kind of non-linear geometry. Like that sounds like it might be real, but I'm not really like, I don't know that much about geometry, but I'd like to know more. I know that people who are into raw food like myself, like a lot of the people I'm into raw food like are also into sacred geometry, but I don't know much about that either.